This is 23:30 GMT in the evening of Wednesday, the 30th of September 2020. We start with an update again on the situation in Silot, Bangladesh, following the reported arrests of the accused in the gang rape of the young wife on Friday in the Sylhet MC College hostel area. Let's say hostel area, because there have been conflicting statements made by the principal and others. Now, we have been saying from the beginning, when we first made the comment that rape, gang rape or individual rape must be eliminated from Bangladesh, and that no rapist can live in Bangladesh. That is the minimum that should happen, and we have been explaining why. Now, most of the English language search results are confined to the limited items that are really identical, and it's not really based on an investigation. It's all repeating the same thing. How many Bangladesh Chhatra League activists have been arrested, because the Bangladesh Chhatra League activists are the gang that raped this 19-year-old person. And it hasn't got any original, the English language items that we are looking at are on the websites of the following titles: Dhaka Tribune, newagebd.net, Pratham Alo English, then Dhaka Tribune, United News of Bangladesh, the dailynewsnation.com, Pratham Alo English, Pratham Alo English, Dhaka Tribune, Dhaka Tribune, Dhaka Tribune, United News of Bangladesh, Dhaka Tribune, Dhaka Tribune, United News Bangladesh. So these are not copies that are original. These seem to be written with the safest kind of prospect in mind by the people who are editing or publishing these items. And there is nothing about the history of organized crime and criminality that has been dominating most of the academic institutions in Bangladesh, and even before it became Bangladesh, when it was East Pakistan, the history of occupation, dominance, and domination by criminally engaged and criminally active and criminally mobilized and criminally impunity enjoying gangs operating under covers of students' unions or student associations or students' organizations. Not student associations formally affiliated to the nominal student forums allowed in the institutions, but student organizations as practically armed groups of thugs taking over the environments in the institutions. None of that is available in any of these English language items, and the English language seems to be dominated by the ones that I have read: Dhaka Tribune, United News of Bangladesh, Dhaka Tribune, Pratham Alo, English. There is one missing, which is the Daily Star. But even the Daily Star is not going to run anything fundamentally different from the run-of-the-mill items that these ones are running. Now, Friday the 25th, and this is the 6th day since the person was gang raped and her husband being tied up and prevented from helping her. And there are now reports in other media, in the Bangladeshi language media, especially in the online streamed and videos, where it is being shown, footage being shown, that the police, members of the police at various levels have been very closely connected with the accused and their gang. So there is concern now being expressed by Sylhet-based activists or political campaigners, limited campaigners, who are saying that these accused would be given the bail and they would be allowed to roam free in the near future. And there is this suspicion that nothing would be done, let alone rape being banned and rapists being prevented from living in Bangladesh. So that is the contrast, what should happen and what is actually happening. These gang rapists are being suspected of being very highly protected by still unnamed higher sources in positions of decisive power in Bangladesh. That's what is being said in the piece that we have seen in a package aired in the last few minutes, as far as we could access it in the last few minutes, on a thing called Jamuna TV. Now that is not repeated in the Dhaka Tribune, Pratham Alo English, or United News of Bangladesh. And there is complete silence now from the opposition politicians that were beginning to be getting some reports and coverage in the first few hours of after the news broke. So the Dhaka Tribune is saying that that in Bangladesh, 4 women are raped every day on average. Well, this is a completely untruthful kind of reassurance. Dhaka Tribune doesn't seem to be at all tribuning the objective news about the country. Dhaka Tribune is a completely dishonestly run outfit. I mean, the Daily Star is also dishonestly run, but the comparison between Dhaka Tribune and the Star is that the Star still has got some pretensions about being, quote, skeptical. It's not way out critical of the status quo, but it's a bit kind of skeptical, and that is the brand it peddles itself as. And despite his claim to be a critical, leading kind of journalist, the main person, Mahfuz Anam, is not anywhere near being critical as the main kind of thinker behind the Dhaka-based Daily Star. So there is no journalism in Bangladesh that actually is reporting the truth about the real forces that are giving kind of confidence and impunity, sense of impunity to the gangs of criminals that are committing rapes and other violence across the country. And there is nothing that has been reported about the mother and daughter who were paraded a few weeks ago on the streets of southeastern Bangladesh because the mother refused to let her daughter be married by a polygamist criminal with connections with unknown hidden forces in the country. So nothing has been reported about any action being taken against him. Now, in the last 48 hours, there has been news about the final decision by a criminal court in the case of a man who was murdered by a gang of about 5 or 6. And the victim's wife is among the people who have been in the news, according to the news coming from Bangladesh or appearing in Bangladesh during Wednesday, 30th of September 2020. The victim's wife is among the people who have been sentenced to hanging. Now, in Bangladesh, there is death penalty, and the hanging is often used when serious cases are before the court, and that is one of the latest ones. So about 5 or 6 have been sentenced to death by hanging. And the importance in the context of the MC College gang rape incident is that that case was only made possible after video footage of the murder coming out and getting the attention of the public. Otherwise, the murderers were going to get away, despite the fact that the police in the local area knew who the murderers were. And they had almost got away, the murderers. And in the case of the MC College gang rape, what is being discussed in Sylhet and in the kind of local communities is that this gang of rapists will get away. So the police are issuing a statement saying that they won't get away. And some people are saying that because it has become such a widely discussed and widely publicized crime, whoever would want to let the criminals get away won't dare to let them get away. Well, that is the optimistic note on which that particular footage or item on Jamuna TV, which we accessed in the last 40 minutes, ended in the last hours of Wednesday, the 30th of September 2020, as the time is in London now. This is now 18 minutes to midnight GMT, and that is midnight into Thursday, the 1st of October 2020. So the situation in Bangladesh is not at all reassuring, and this actually should have been covered in the papers that we are looking at on the internet in the English language. And they should have been talking about the case, Barguna case, the Barguna murder, on Rifat was the victim of the murder. And his wife, Aisha Siddiqa Minni, has been among the people who were sentenced to death during a ruling announced on Wednesday in Bangladesh time, the 30th of September 2020. Now, the coverage of the Sylhet MC College gang rape should have been including the background story about how the murderers in Burguna almost got away because of their connections, and how the parader of the mother and daughter in southeastern Bangladesh is still without any known action being taken against him, and how dozens of other, even highly publicized murder cases have been stalled and put in cold storage because it is widely suspected in Bangladesh the murderers are connected with unidentified sources and forces who exert influence in Bangladesh. And so therefore there is no kind of criticism about that in the coverage today. In the Dhaka Tribune or the United News of Bangladesh, Dhaka Tribune or United News of Bangladesh, or Prathamalo English, Dhaka Tribune or United News of Bangladesh. And there is this piece about the Bangladesh Education Ministry having formed a 3-member committee on Tuesday to investigate whether there was any negligence of the college authorities in the gang rape. Now, this is in the Financial Express Bangladesh. This is a stupid item of deviation because the Education Ministry may have 3 or 30-member committee, but that is not intended to catch the criminals and punish them. It is to deflect attention from the criminals. How can the Education Ministry interfere in what should be the due process and the rule of law in the country and the due process and investigation? If the college authorities were implicated, then that should be the duty and the responsibility and the remit of the investigating, prosecuting criminal investigation forces and personnel. One person, a former kind of chair of the Sylhet lawyers group, said that the only hope there is for any justice for the victim of the gang rape is that rapid action force or rapid action group or rapid action bureau, I think it is called, which has been involved in the arrest of most of the criminals or has been involved significantly in the arrest of the criminals. And the hope is that since the RAB or RAB has been involved, there would be less risk of the case being whitewashed or hidden and suppressed. But that is a hope. In a country where there is no certainty about gangs of criminals or individual criminals with connections, wherever the connections are, being treated with a rigorous sanction of the law, there can be no guarantee that this one will have a different consequence or different outcome. We are in London and we don't belong to any faction in Bangladesh or any Bangladeshi factions operating in the UK, because we know that there are factions and agencies of various Bangladesh-based political outlets or outfits that are operating among the Bangladeshi community in the UK and abroad in other countries as well, in the USA, in other parts of Western Europe, and in the many of the Gulf states in the Middle East. We can say that there is no connection whatsoever in what we are saying with anything to do with any of these people. We are internationally observing, literally, objectively, internationally observing the operation, if any, of due process and rule of law in the state called Bangladesh. And we are saying that for everyone's sake and for Bangladesh's sake, Bangladesh has to stop allowing gangs or individual rapists or other criminals being exempt from accountability, due process, under due process, the actual full rigor of due process. And that is what should happen. And if it doesn't happen, if it is prevented from happening, then the reputation of Bangladesh cannot be established as a country that people, citizens in Bangladesh, Bangladesh's own citizens can be safe in their own country, in their own homes. And the rape is the worst thing that should happen. And the last rape should be this one. There must not be any more rapes, any other rapes. That is what Bangladesh needs, and the people of Bangladesh deserve. So we are saying that no rapists should live in Bangladesh, and rape should be incompatible with the very existence and the very future, the very identity of Bangladesh. So let's see what whoever is shielding these criminals gets up to. And we shall be updating, of course, in due course, and we shall be doing the updating as and when we get access to information at any time. And in the meantime, we are talking about the UK, and in the Financial Times 2 days ago, the Financial Times of Monday, 28th of September 2020, on page 26, there was a rare piece which I read out, and I'm going to read it. I read more of it today. It is headlined "Realities of Politics and the Judiciary." And I'm going to read this in order to shed some light on the problems in establishing rule of law and due process that is faced by the actual supporters of rule of law and due process and victims and campaigners for justice in Bangladesh and in countries like Bangladesh. The similarities between Bangladesh and India are not very different. They're similar. First of all, people who are victims of rape and similar major crimes in India cannot even dream, even fantasize about getting justice from the Indian judiciary or Indian kind of so-called law and order forces. It is only available, the justice or remedy is only available to the people who have got lots of money and lots of influence in India. And as in the last 3-4 years, 5 years, 6 years, the gang rapes have shown India doesn't care about the victims of gang rapes. India meaning Modi and his Brahminist, extremist, fundamentalist kind of regime. They don't care. And we go back through decades of India being dominated by the Congress party. Well, mostly identified with the Jawaharlal Nehru family, who are wrongly still referred to as the Gandhi family. They're not Gandhi family. They're nothing to do with M.K. Gandhi. The Gandhi name is completely not anything to do with M.K. Gandhi. That Gandhi name is connected with the short marriage of Jawaharlal Nehru's daughter, Indira Gandhi, with a Parsi man called Feroz Gandhi. Nothing to do with M.K. Gandhi. And Feroz Gandhi and Indira Gandhi didn't stay very long together. So that name of Gandhi is a criminally kind of invented connection to steal, to exploit, to misappropriate the name Gandhi and to give credence to that extent to the Jawaharlal Nehru family. So it's actually correctly named Nehru dynasty, not Nehru Gandhi dynasty, because that is a complete distortion. It's an absolute perversion. It's fake news decades before fake news was discovered by Trump. Fake news has existed, as I have been saying, for longer. And so therefore the Nehru dynasty and Nehru family is to be blamed for the morass in criminal justice, criminal law, and absence of criminal law and constitutionality at every level in the Republic of India, which is far bigger than the Republic of Bangladesh and many times bigger than the state of Pakistan next door. And the duties and the fault and the blame for hundreds of millions of Indians being denied justice in India, this is something that is a generational thing. It is generations of Indians have been denied any access to justice, any access whatsoever to remedies for wrongs done to them. Hundreds of millions of people have been denied that, are still being denied that. And the Modi regime, the Brahminist regime, is now engaged in a collusion or coalition with the USA establishment, whereby they have set up a network which is designed and modeled after American CNN type of kind of broadcaster. And they are doing round-the-clock broadcasting aimed at discrediting China. We are not apologists for China, and we are not in any way unaware of the Chinese keeping any number of Muslims in concentration camps and denying rights to most Chinese citizens. But the point is that the Indian regime doing the propaganda war against China is also denying the Indian ordinary people, victims of injustice in India, any say, any rights whatsoever. So the money and the resources that the Modi-fronted regime of Brahminists is spending in propaganda against China and against other international kind of foes, these should be used to uphold the long denied rights to India's people. And so the reason why I have said that is because in Bangladesh, the assumption is that Bangladesh is a completely still a bottomless basket case. Bottomless basket case is a rephrasing of what Henry Kissinger called it in the early 1970s, because of the poverty and the hunger and the famine that Bangladesh was suffering from at the height of the years after 1971. And Kissinger was also repeating something that another American, not a foreign minister like Kissinger was, but another American had observed about East Pakistan. That was still part of Pakistan, and that was in the 1950s. And when that particular American observer wrote about then East Pakistan, he said that looking at the behavior of the people, it is impossible to understand how this country runs, how this country operates. So the only conclusion must be that if with that kind of disorganization and incompetence, lack of kind of due process, lack of due kind of rule of law and all the rest of it, and lack of care about one another, lack of any decent kind of attitude towards each other. If despite all of that, this country can function, then the only explanation must be, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but I'm paraphrasing something based on memory. I have not been checking on the text, but this is a very kind of important item of information in my memory. And he said, that writer, the American writer, had said that if despite all these problems this country can operate, then the only explanation must be that there is a God. Now, this is not ironic, and this is not a fantasy piece. This is factual. Now, in Bangladesh, as we have been saying, the victim of the gang rape in Sylhet, in MC College, must be the last kind of person to be put through this absolutely indescribable nightmare. And as I've been saying, no rapist must live in Bangladesh, because in the battle that was fought for 9 months in 1971 for independence for Bangladesh, people later came to know, people who were not witnessing this and were not aware of what was going on, came to know after the events, but only after Bangladesh was, quote, declared independent, that many women were raped by the Pakistan army. And the question is, if that is the sacrifice that the women made, what is the basis of making a 19-year-old Bangladeshi woman go through the same while her rapists are Bangladeshis, children of liberated Bangladesh, the liberation that was paid for by all those uncounted, unnamed women who were raped by the Pakistani army in 1971. Are the Bangladeshi forces, we don't know who they are, but people who are making decisions are scheming to cover up these gang rapists' crimes. Are they actually expecting people to believe that Bangladesh was liberated for Bangladeshi gangs to be able to rape Bangladeshi women with impunity? Is that what the women of 1971 rapes went through their ordeals for? Answer this question.